What is up, everyone? This is the first ever episode of my new podcast, The Sports Tee with JD. Joining me right now is Lipscomb University's athletic director, who a lot of you may know, Phillip Hutcheson. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Hope you're all's well for you, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, but this time it is Williamson County's athletic director right here with me. Darrin joins. Mr. Darrin, thank you for joining us.
Jackson, I appreciate you having me this morning, and I'm real impressed with what you're trying to do with your show.
Joining me today is the head coach again of Vanderbilt University's baseball program, Tim Corbin. Coach Corbin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jackson. I appreciate it.
And George Plaster, thanks for joining us.
Jackson, how you doing?
Ooh, I am doing well. I am honored that you're on the show. As joining me right now is the voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Jackson, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
I am joined by the voice of the Nashville Predators, Pete Weber. Pete, thanks for joining the show.
Jackson, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You guys coming on, and thanks for listening to episode 7 of the Sports Tee with JD. Thanks, guys. First off, let's welcome the two of them, Ethan Farrell and Phillip Walker. Thanks for joining, guys.
How's it going? Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, so I've gotten to check out your podcast a little bit. For episode 9, John Freeman, the voice of Nashville SC. John, thanks for joining the podcast.
I appreciate it, Jackson, and you got your priorities right here.
Guys, I appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you for having
us.
Yes, and right now, Willy Daunic joined me. Willy, thanks for joining the show.
Glad to be here, and I like the backdrop. You've put some effort into that.
Right now, joining me is Andrew Chapman. Andrew, thanks for joining the show.
Jackson, you bet, man. I wish, you were calling some baseball in the booth with me this season.
Andrew Seco. Andrew, thanks for joining the show.
The man, the myth, the legend, Jackson Duncan. Thank you for having me on, man. It's a complete honor to be here.
And now I have him back for season 2 to talk about fall sports coming back. Mr. Darrin, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
First off, let's welcome Montgomery Stewart. Montgomery, thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, I'm a lot less cool than all your other guests. Speaking of
football team for the Bisons, right now joining me is Michael Cendrick. Michael, thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, bro. Thank you so much for having me. I know.
Joining me right now is Haley Kate Webb from Arkansas. Haley Kate, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Jack has his own podcast, the Tighten Up Podcast with Austin Huff. So they're both hosting that podcast, and he knows about the Titans. So I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Reed Pace is joining the final episode of season 2. That is now 20 episodes in 2020. That's what we're going to call a wrap for season 2. Mitch, thanks for hopping on this special edition of the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. That was actually back in 2016.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to the second fantasy football special on the Sports Tee with JD. Last week, Kyle Decklebaum, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, man, good to be with you.
Yeah, so the main topic of discussion I want to get to today is actually live action hockey to talk about in the near future.
Jackson, much appreciated. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
JD, my name is Jackson Duncan. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jackson Duncan 22. You can follow the Sports Tee accounts on Twitter at the Sports Tee and on Instagram at the Sports Tee with JD. And make sure you're on the lookout for new episodes to come on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and YouTube. Just make sure you look up the Sports Tee with JD.